Okay, so we have a bull trout, a Grace Lake bull trout.
It's really great to see that.
We are headed up to Grace Lake, which is upstream of Logging Lake, protected by a barrier falls, to sample some bull trout that were introduced in 2014 as part of a conservation introduction.
The reason we're having to translocate them and plant them in Grace Lake is in two parts. One being that there's invasive lake trout in Logging Lake that are suppressing bull trout, the native bull trout population that's here. And the other reason is climate change and increasing water temperatures. It's very warm. Bull trout are very thermal specific, and they need cold, clean, clear water. And we're kind of losing that in some of our lower elevations. So moving them up to higher elevations that are going to stay colder longer is what's best for them.
Glacier National Park is perfectly suited for this type of conservation introduction because bull trout inhabit these systems that often consist of chains of lakes where the headwater lakes are protected by barriers and therefore also protected from invasive species. And on top of that, they provide the cooler habitats currently and are projected to provide the colder, more suitable habitats for bull trout into the future. Here we are at Grace Lake, and we're performing a Mark-recapture bull trout population that was introduced here in 2014 as part of the conservation introduction. And it's important because we like to periodically return just to capture growth data and population and abundance data for this population to track its progress. Length is going to be 324. Grace Lake is situated several hundred feet higher than Logging Lake, and it's also sitting on the upper end of a chain of lakes, so the water is typically cooler up here in Grace Lake, in the lake itself, and especially and more critically in the stream habitats.
The goal of this is to provide a refugia. Knowing the threats that these species face, warming waters, decreasing runoff, or changes to our peak runoff times, the lakes that were selected to place these fish, they were deliberately chosen, carefully chosen for where they sit, what influences them, and the risks posed by non-native species.
So the three watersheds we looked at all already had invasive species in them, in the form of Yellowstone cutthroat trout. And so from there, we just considered recipient habitat, recipient community, how those might change, how those might accommodate bull trout, future threats, what kind of climate change effects might we see to the stream temperature that would influence the suitability of these places, and then finally, what would the potential donor population of bull trout be? And using that framework, Grace Lake came out as the most likely to succeed.
So all of these efforts to introduce native species across areas that they haven't historically lived, it is deliberate, it is intentional, and it is a huge project that is being thoroughly studied at every stage. And if what we're doing doesn't work, we're going to change it. We're going to do something else. And that's the whole goal here, is to be able to adapt in real time.
New fish.
In the face of climate change, we're using what we've learned at Grace Lake and applying that elsewhere.
Yeah, nice fish.
With bull trout, we know their life history, we know their habitat requirements, and we know that change is coming, but we cannot predict the future. But what we can do is look at multiple possible futures, finding different climate outcomes and finding management solutions that can adapt.
1887, I saw again.
We see nothing but benefits from this project. To see big fish that we're seeing in different age classes that we're seeing that we know we put here and that are doing really well. And it feels good knowing that we're doing good.
We won't find in our past a perfect point to strive to return to, but what we can do is look forward, study multiple projected future climate outcomes, and find management solutions that can adapt to these changing conditions.